GME just announced a 4-to-1 dividend split. What this means for you, we saw a massive upside today, and how is this going to correlate into the future and going into the next OPEX cycle, July 15th?
So from hanging on Pi-Fi stream all day, what I'm pleased to report is that there are three things in the back of my mind that I think of that are coming together right now. Number one, you have can kicking that happened from the past OPEX cycle in June. I don't know what's going on in this particular situation, but the best guess I have is something like February, where you have these two 14-day deferral extensions, so 28 days total. But the point is that when you run again, through the math, which I'm not very good at, but when you run the deferrals, it takes you right smack dab to July 15th, so a week from today. So that's the first thing that's particularly interesting. The second thing that's interesting is you actually have the July OPEX, which is again occurring on the 15th. And the last thing you have that's occurring, at least that we know about, is the 4-to-1 stock dividend split. I believe the date of record is the 18th, which is going to be the Monday following the July 15th OPEX. Here's where it gets interesting, and this is what I'm really curious to understand, is when you have, if we do have a similar repeat, like what happened in February, where February was can kick to March, so, and that's basically June being can kick to July, that would be on the exact same day that you would have the July OPEX due, and then you would have the T+2 window that opens up. Now, since there's no federal holidays or any of that nonsense occurring on the week thereafter, again, as I understand it, there's no deferrals that can be put up. But I say that very, very cautiously because I have a feeling it's one of these things where they can say, oh, look at the phase of the moon, or, oh, look, something shiny, or just insert some other bullshit excuse or whatever, right, to kick something up. But assuming they don't do that or they can't do that, which I think is kind of, risky, the point is you've got those two things that are occurring. And this is against the backdrop of the share dividend. With the share dividend coming out the way, again, as I poorly understand it, what's unique about that front, for reasons that I poorly understand and I really can't articulate, this is detrimental to those who are short. Now, they don't necessarily have to close out the short position, but there's an incentive for them to close out their short position. And what's also important to note about the share dividend is, unlike last year, where GameStop released, I believe it was about 5 million more shares on or about June, July, this is not dilutive. In other words, it's just an accounting trick. Again, if I use the example, like imagine you have $1 and now you've got 4 quarters. Okay, well, you went from 1 unit to 4 units, but your purchasing power essentially stayed the same. Versus, you actually get a smaller piece of the pie being dilutive. So very curious to see how that plays out. You've got three things that are coming together. I should also note again, thanks to, Pi-Fi and all those guys, on the stream being very generous with their time and their information. It looks like you did see FOMO piling into weeklies that will come due today. We'll see whether or not the weeklies hold. We'll see whether or not they go away. But again, as you can see right here from Market Chameleon, definitely bullish. Also of note, Bobby had a bit of a run today, and the Bobby chain remains, at least for the call side, in an interesting position.
Yeah. He says that because they're so heavily weighted towards extreme out of the money call buying because they were so cheap for so long. People just dump their money into extremely long-term BBBY out of the money calls. And that gets very precarious if we get above like a $10 mark, because then the longs become in control of the chain. And then what does it take to really drive it down? It's gonna just be basically a battle that is a very losing battle for a short position, and just the longs are just gonna rail it up as long as they either continue to hold or exercise those contracts. And we could see a humongous squeeze in BBY because of that. I think GME is really interesting now, and extraordinarily interesting because of the timing of Ryan Cohen's actual buy-in, and the timing as when this share dividend is going to be executed, which is going to be the 18th of June, which is in that T+1 out of the T+2 days. Because that, to me, Ryan Cohen, this is him, at least in my opinion, kind of proven that he knows what is going on behind the scenes. With all of his buy-ins, he was very strategic, buying them on that are very important for FTD creation and obligation pushing off. And to me, putting the share dividend date today, so where it's going to be on the T+1 announcement, I think that is extraordinarily indicative that they know exactly what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I don't believe Cohen's buying any more shares, just to be clear on that front. But the point is that with Cohen being the chairman of the board and the board announcing the way they announced the dividend and the way the date is set up.
The timing.
Yeah, the timing.
It's
exactly.
No, this one could have been a coincidence, but all of Ryan Cohen's previous buy-ins were no coincidence now, because he was placing them in very strategic times. We also see a lot of BBBY shareholders picking up a lot of new shares. That we talk about this all the time, but companies, insiders only buy for one reason. They think the price is going to go up, and they can sell for any amounts of reasons, which is why we don't really like AMC too much. But BBBY insiders and GME insiders continuously buy, which is extraordinarily bullish. At least if they're buying, I'm going to be as well.
Yeah. So anyways, like I said, in the interim, though, I would expect, and just to be in full fairness, while I do have quite a substantial call position on both Bobby and Jimmy, I did also pick up some puts today. Typically, what I like to trade is I by no means am a good trader. This is the real estate guy in me talking, so I like to enter position and then stay in the position. I don't know if I, as PyFi will say, will take calls and puts and strangle them under the water until they stop breathing. But my attitude is like the idea, or it's very foreign to me to jump in and out of positions. If you think you have a thesis, buy something, at least in this context, with enough theta, you can sit in it and see if your thesis,
What kind of puts did you pick up?
I think it was a 125s and 130s is what I got. Maybe like I think 10 contracts total for that. It was either August or October for that. But my point is, the reason I went for, I think I went for August, but don't hold me to that. But the reason that I would have done that, or my thinking was, I do think that you're going to see pressure tomorrow and Monday and Tuesday for them to get it down as low as they can.
Well, so, like, is it a chance? I mean, if we stay elevated going in tomorrow, that's going to be a lot of calls that expire in the money that otherwise would have, especially with retail piling in. So we could see a bump Monday, Tuesday, but are you talking Wednesday, Thursday going in?
No. See, I slightly disagree with that, because like if you look at the call that comes in, the last thing that the option market makers want to do is hedge any of this shit. So what does that mean? You just take a page from what happened. It wasn't June 17th, but it was whatever, the Friday before RCL3 in Miami, whatever, right? We started running up, and boy, did they just smack that thing back down. And they wanted to shake out the option chain, or I would argue, that was one of the main things they wanted to do.
I would actually take the other side of that trade. I personally did nothing today with my GME position. After I got fried during the last OPEX in June, I sold all my trading positions going into that, but I still have a substantial long-term leaps going on GME, which are still, I mean, they're in the money, they're doing fine, but I have not yet position myself after hearing about this news or going into the next OPEX, just because I'd prefer not to buy in as FOMO. And if we continue to run next week, going into let's say Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I will buy, I'll chase, but I'm not going to chase at the beginning stages when there's still a lot of time for us to go down between now and next OPEX. I'm probably going to position myself to where I'm going to be picking up the majority of my position by next Thursday, Friday, and like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then having sub capital left over to position myself for one day after the split. I mean, for the Monday, once the split has already been done, just because options will be they'll probably be priced a little differently then.
Yeah. So, Josh, I think you and I are in a complete agreement with each other.
Justin, we've never once.
Hold on. So back up. We're in complete agreement, but we're taking different roads to get there, which means that we're not going to be cursing ourselves. Let me explain on that front. So yesterday, before we had the split, I picked up a few more of the 950s. I picked up a few more. I think it was $5 calls from Bobby.
A fantastic trade by Justin there. He sold some puts and then bought some calls.
No. Like I sold the puts. I sold those last week, whatever, right? But then when we started to run, we started to pick up. So anyway, the point is, like, I think I got into the last entry point, before you had the FOMO. And Josh, I think you're 100% correct. Like, today this is being recorded on Thursday, but it's going to drop tomorrow on Friday. So Thursday and Friday, I think, it's going to be a bit of a bump. Now, that being said, towards the end of Friday, they can smack it back down, which I think they'll try to do. They can basically take all that pressure off the option chain, especially if people have bought, 0 DTEs. And
I just don't know if they'll be able to. I mean, they could spend millions of dollars notionally to drive to put some push to buy some puts to force the hedging. But I would just not be as confident that we will see a drop. I think that we can stay kind of elevated, then see a bump Monday, Tuesday, but then just IV kind of gets crushed. We just kind of dribble maybe the rest of the week. That's when I'll position.
But the thing is, for Monday though, that's when and this is where I just start breaking down, because excuse my ignorance, everyone, there is that with XRT going on Reg Show, somehow that means that it's easier to generate synthetics, I think.
Maybe that. Well, right now we're arguing about the future, which is a dumb thing to do. So keep going with your plan.
Okay, yeah. So anyways, but my point is this is like, Josh, and this is where I think you and I are in agreement, but we're coming at it in slightly different ways, is that I think that if one wanted to take a very short-term bearish stance, which is my take, today, maybe tomorrow is going to be the time to enter that. But if you want a position for OPEX, I would say like see what happens maybe Monday and Tuesday, then maybe Wednesday, Thursday. It really depends upon like how nimble you can be. Like if you can sit in front of your computer all day and like, it catches as soon as it starts to run, great. You can wait to the last minute. If you have to work or whatever, right? Well, maybe you want a slightly different strategy, or set up some conditional orders or whatever, right? So you can get bought in if things start to run. But in any event, the thing is, I definitely want to be in position sooner rather than later. That's just my personal preference. Josh, as a trader, you're much more nimble than I am. So I mean, different strokes for different folks there. And lastly, with what happens on not this Friday, or not today, this Friday, but a week, that is the 15th, and then you have the T+1, T+2. And then with the, I think shares coming due from the split, those are going to be due on the 21st, I believe, because the 18th is a Monday. So that means they have the 18th and the 19th to cover shenanigans from the 15th, OPEX plus the can kicking. And I believe they have till the opening bell on the 20th, which is Wednesday, to place trades. And I guess if they're done, or they come out through a dark pool, whatever, right, or dark pools, it can be sold throughout the day. But the point is, shit has to be done by the 20th, as I understand it, assuming there's no bullshit deferrals and whatever. That's a big assumption to make in itself. But then you have on the 21st, Thursday, the fallout from the split. So anyway, Josh, very interesting to see what's going to happen. But the point is, these next week, particularly next week, I think particularly next week going to OPEX, spicy.